Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest. My name is John, and I'm here today with my two co-hosts, Brooke and Megan. Hey, Brooke, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Pretty excited. Another funny, fun, interesting story for you guys.
Megan, how's your Sunday going?
It's going well. I've been staying at home, not doing much, but this podcast is
Yeah.
going to be great today. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yes, we have some really good topics today. The Ridgeway Ghost and the Mineral Point Vampire. So what I always say, New York, you don't always have vampires in California. We got vampires in Wisconsin too. So,
Yeah.
But before we get into it, let's start off with a quick paranormal news segment from Megan. Take it away, Megan.
All right. Thanks, John. This story that I'm going to tell you about today is really interesting, especially because a few weeks ago we did another podcast episode about Holy Hill, and this paranormal news kind of ties in with that, which we thought that was very interesting. So if you are someone who's on Facebook, feel free to follow along as I tell this story. Go to Facebook and look up Holy Hill Art Farm. You'll see when you look at it, it's a very bright, welcoming, fun page. It's about this rustic farm venue in Hubertus, Wisconsin. So this one post that they made back in March 29th of 2022, it's very interesting. It's not, their normal posts. It has 2.5 thousand reactions and 1.3 thousand comments. So
Wow.
We looked into it, and something very interesting about it. And by the way, if you want to find it, use the search feature on their Facebook page and look up a word like paranormal and you'll find it. Anyways, so the post reads, from this art farm, our trail camera set up in the southwest cornfield captured a very creepy figure walking along the edge of the field. The camera, with no easy access from the road, is a motion sensor camera and only takes pictures when something triggers the device. This almost proves that the figure must have been moving for the camera to have taken a photo. So you can see this photo on their post, and it kind of looks like this tall, thin woman who might be wearing this like white nightgown or dress. It's very spooky. And the interesting thing is that this figure, she's almost as tall as the corn stalks behind her. And I had to look this up, but Wisconsin corn stalks, they can be like 6 to 8 feet or even taller.
Right.
So this is a really tall
Ooh.
figure. Yeah, it's interesting. So then I decided to look at the comments, what do people think that this figure is? And some people are saying, oh, it kind of looks like someone in like an old nurse's uniform.
Mm.
It's like,
I can see that.
Yeah, or there were some people who were a bit more skeptical in the comments. Some people were saying it kind of looks like an old feed bag that got stuck in the corn, which very well could be with it being around corn. So I don't know. What do you two think this looks like?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I was also reading the comments on that post and I saw people say that, but it definitely looks like it has like two distinct legs and a head. So it's, I don't know, it's a little odd. And I know the people who posted it, the Holy Hill Art Farm, they didn't seem to think that it was a feed bag. So they thought it was like kind of cool. And they also, someone mentioned that it almost looks like she's like carrying something because she's kind of hunched over. I know Megan, when we first talked about this, Megan was like, oh, it's like me running to the kids in the middle of the night to get shredded cheese.
Me just getting my snack.
Yeah. I get it. And maybe I could definitely just see it being like a real person just wandering out in the fields at night too, and not even like a ghost. But yeah.
What do you think, John?
So what's really interesting about trail cams is people don't understand they're really hard to how do I say, like, fake stuff with, because basically all they are is the camera, and I've never used some, but some of my cousins are big hunters. So basically it's just a camera with a motion detector, so if something goes past, takes a picture. That's it. So there's no way to kind of like Photoshop things or anything like that. You would have to really kind of go out of your way to do it because it's very simple tech. So to me, it looks like someone, and it's really hard, your eyes play tricks on you, but kind of looks like someone is running for something or running to try to get something, but it's a real cool picture and
Right.
interesting to say the
It
least.
definitely looks like she's moving pretty quickly. If it is a figure, it's interesting. So I
Right.
wanted to learn more, from the comments. So I looked at a few, and one woman named Wendy, she wrote, "There are definitely spirits roaming this area. I used to hear kids laughing and playing in the middle of the night during the summer months when the windows were open.
Nice.
I actually got up out of bed to check on my kids, and they were sound asleep." So there's other mysterious things happening in this area, and we know that since it's so close to Holy Hill, and I'll talk about that
Right.
in a few minutes. But another woman named Carol wrote, "Spirits are all around us. They will not hurt you. I know this because the property where I live has many spirits. Take some time to study the area and who lived there in the past. It's exciting to learn from them." So I thought that was it's like an interesting view on it. But something interesting I wanted to look up is how far away from Holy Hill Basilica, the church in the area, how far is that away from Holy Hill Art Farm? And it's only 3.5 miles away.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it's a coincidence that there's just so much paranormal activity going on around this area. And if you, as listeners, want to learn more about that, we have an entire episode dedicated just to the legends of Holy Hill. I believe it's our episode number 5, so you can take a look at that. We talk about the hermit of Holy Hill, and we also talk about the goat man of Hogsback Road. So if you want to hear more creepy stories from this same area, definitely check it out. Brooke actually told multiple personal stories that she had from the area, and they're really great, so you won't want to miss them. So definitely take a look at our old number 5 episode. And I also wanted to point out, we are going to be starting an Instagram for Dairyland Frights. So if you'd like to see this, if we want to see this mysterious, creepy photo that the art farm posted, we are going to put that on our Instagram page for all of you to check out. So look us up, Dairyland Frights. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on. We're going to focus on some other really cool stories from the town of Mineral Point, Wisconsin, which has this odd amount of paranormal activity going on. So I am very excited to learn more about this. So we're going to start off with John, and he's going to tell us about the Ridgeway Ghost.
So thank you, Megan. That was really interesting. And on our Instagram, please share any creepy pictures you may have. We can figure out if they're fake, though. So don't try to run one past us. We're smarter than that, right, Megan and Brooke?
Yeah, totally.
I like to think so.
But scary is scary. If you send a scary picture, we love it, So, Ridgeway Ghost. Ladies, this is really interesting. So, just really quickly, I want to tell you about my footnotes here, so I get those out of the way so everybody gets credit. So, J.A. Hernandez, I got this from Horror History, a New York Times article from the early 1900s, and also a book by William Horner called The Wisconsin Ridgeway Ghost. This is actually kind of an interesting book because it's a kid's book. So it's kind of interesting. Somebody did the kid's book about the Ridgeway Ghost, which you're going to find out maybe is not for kids. So let's start out where Ridgeway is. If you're not from Wisconsin, it's about southwest Wisconsin. There's a small town. It's called Ridgeway. It's about 600 people. And it's one of the few ghosts, though, that throughout the history would be rumored to have killed the living. So
terrifying.
It's one of the first ghosts that someone can say, someone died from this ghost, okay? And one of the topics we'll have to cover, Megan and Brooke, and some topics about how ghosts have killed people, which has always been interesting. Like people literally dying of fright. So anyway, it haunts the U.S. Route 151 between Dodgeville and Blue Mounds, which is basically about 40 minutes away from my house. It's just a roughly 20-mile stretch of road, primarily farmland.
And it does go I'm sorry, I just wanted to say it does go right to Mineral Point 2, which will tie into our following stories. So
Ah,
it's kind of
it is.
interesting. It like
Look it
connects
up.
Ridgeway and Mineral Point. So it's,
Yeah,
yeah, very intriguing.
we're so professional.
Right?
So one of the things, I'm going to give you a quick history. I won't use my old timey voice this time because,
Oh, darn.
well, maybe I will. But anyway, maybe once in a while. Anyway, so the entire area of southwestern Wisconsin had a population explosion in the 1830s, with about 10,000 immigrants coming every year to work in the lead mines, and many tried to make it their home. And that to me is crazy because you think about it, 10,000 immigrants coming to Ridgeway every
That's a
year.
lot.
That's a
Right?
lot, right? So this is even funnier to me because if you know Ridgeway or any small town in Wisconsin, you're kind of like, especially us who have lived in Wisconsin pretty much all our lives, it was a wild place with lots of gambling and drinking and fighting and knifings and shootings and
Knifings.
daily. So there was like no law. Like you could literally just go to a bar and stab somebody and everybody'd be like, well, shouldn't have been there.
Oh, yep.
Just start a fight. Like, that's my woman. Bam, So it's
Sounds about right.
ridiculous. So like any of these shows you've seen about the Old West, that was Ridgeway, Wisconsin at one time. Isn't that weird?
It is, but it makes sense. I have a couple stories for later, and I'm like, it definitely all makes sense knowing what I know now.
It's just bizarre to me because going to Ridgeway now or go on Google or Earth and look at it, you're like, huh? Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, so on May 1st, 1913, a fire swept through the downtown area of Ridgeway. High winds quickly spread. It burned through most of the buildings downtown, including the post office bank, lumberyard, train depot. And here's the funny thing is, after that, the Ridgeway Fire Department was established. So they didn't even have a fire department.
Oh,
So
after the fire burned down the whole town.
Yeah, so it just basically destroyed the town. So anyway, so really what they found out was that's kind of when this Ridgeway Ghost happened. So I kind of get into that because this is, to me, really, really interesting. What the first thing I find interesting is some people claim that the ghostly activity increases every 40 years. And this is starting in the 1850s. So you can mark your calendar, I guess, when this ghost is going to happen. Now, this is the weird thing. And please, Megan and Brooke, tell me if you've ever heard anything like this, because this is really strange. So the Ridgeway Ghost can change its shape at will from a man with a whip, who knows why, a dog, a sheep, a pig, a horse, and a ball of fire, and my favorite, the horseman. And also, I'm not finished yet. This keep going.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. A young woman, an old woman, and more. So, can I ask you both? Have you ever heard of a ghost that can do all those things, including animals? Anything ring a bell with either one of you?
That's interesting. To me, that sounds more like I feel like skinwalkers. Isn't that more of a thing that's supposed to be able to change its form? I don't know about a ghost.
Not like a pig and a horse and a sheep and a dog.
That's pretty wild.
Right. Isn't that weird?
Very weird.
Megan, what do you think?
I like how this Ridgeway Ghost, it covers the gamut. If there's a farm animal you want to be, like, it can be it, it's very versatile. Yeah. But no, I have not heard of any ghosts being able to do this.
Neither have I. I've heard like a ghost will be a ghost of an animal, like a horse, and you'll see the horse, or you'll see the man, and there'll be a man or maybe a woman, but it just kind of do it. Now, here's the other thing I think is scary, very scary. Ghost appears out of nowhere and it attacks a person, often travelers, and then disappears. So if you remember from our last Not So Mini episode, the Banshee of South Dakota, please look at that one because it's kind of interesting. She would just appear out of nowhere. Here she is. And you're like, okay. So I've never heard anything like that in all of my research and all my things of listening to podcasts and reading books, and that this ghost appears out of nowhere. It could be a pig. So you could just be like walking down the street, a pig comes out in front of you and attacks you. I'm like, what?
Oh, that's Wisconsin for you.
It is.
Right? And the headless horseman, I think, is kind of funny. That's, I think, is just a little bit of fun with people because headless horseman, right?
That's interesting. John, I do have something that might tie into that. I'm gonna save it for later because I think it's a funny story, but it could actually tie into that very interestingly.
Love it. So let's get to the first thing. Okay, so they call it folk tales. I don't know why. Kind of lends itself, I guess, to a folk tale. Dr. Cutler of Dodgeville, of course it's Dr. Cutler, he told a story that a ghost appeared on the pole of his wagon. So Dr. Cutler saw the Ridgeway Ghost or Phantom 3 times in his life. And the third time killed him from fright, according to the New York Times article.
Wow.
So remember, this is so weird, right? Remember we did Haunted Roads and Bridges about you have to, please help me out, ladies, where you drove in Evansville to this one area and you had to do it 3 times before Old Man.
Yeah, Weary Road.
The Weary Road.
Thank you. So listen to that podcast because it's kind of the same thing, right? Everything happens in 3s.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that weird? 3 knocks. If you hear 3 knocks in your house, that's the devil or demon, mocking the Trinity. 3 a.m. You wake up, could be something bad. Isn't that strange? You guys,
it is
interesting. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do see that pop up a lot. I don't know though. Yeah, it could be something to it.
Yeah, Megan, what do you think? 3, why is 3?
Well, something that just makes me laugh is the first 2 times he saw the ghost, I guess it wasn't that scary. I guess the third time was just, that was enough.
Right.
Just get him right in.
Weird, right? So on this New York Times article, and I'll put a link on the website, or if we want to put it on our Instagram page, we will do that too if we feel that would be a great thing for you guys to read, because it's a great article from the New York Times. An established newspaper, obviously.
Right? Yeah, very established.
About Ridgeway, Wisconsin. So and a ghost.
Crazy.
So the same article had the tale of John Lewis, who encountered a giant dark figure on his way home from helping a friend butcher animals. So he must have killed the pig, and the other pig was mad, I guess, at the Ridgeway Ghost. So this is funny too. So John Lewis attacked the strange figure with a knife. Of course, you would do that. And then he was found semi-conscious the following day. He said he had been plucked up in the air and tossed around, describing something similar to that of a tornado. Okay.
Oh, crazy.
And then guess what happened, ladies? John Lewis died a few hours after
that. No, there's a pattern here.
Right? So
very interesting.
Those are 2 deaths. Now, I've heard, again, maybe we'll cover this as a topic, people dying of fright or someone being assaulted, but 2 deaths in a row? Interesting. And then it was with so much force as a tornado. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of energy. So
that is.
What was interesting to me was the W files at the website, and I don't want to discourage anybody from going to this website, but I'm going to tell you, it was like it was created in the 80s. So I don't mean, I'm sure people, doing their best, like we do our best. However, it does have an entire page of stories about the Ridgeway Ghost. Oh, wow. Really just people talking about if they've seen it and stuff. But everything from ghostly hands playing poker to giant vanishing pigs.
There you go with the pigs.
Hey, that gave a farmer such a fright that he became what? Sick and died. So this is the 3rd one.
Wow.
So people who see this ghost, even if it's a pig ghost, are dying. So, I think it's kind of interesting how all these people are dying in this town. Now, remember, this is a town full of knives and fightings and disease. So
right.
We'll talk about it, yes or no, if we believe in this, obviously, at the end of my episode. But so Charles E. Brown, the director of Wisconsin Folklore Society, wrote a 4-page collection in 1943 about the stories of the Ridgeway Ghost. It's worth a read. And I think, like most things in history, there are similarities to more modern tales told. So it is a book out there that both you could read. You know, it's just the kind of the same old, oh, we saw these ghosts and shadows and apparitions and all that good stuff. But being that 3 people died, just really quickly before I go on to how the origin of the Ridgeway Ghost. Brooke, what do you think? Have you ever heard of like 3 people dying with a ghost again? Like I said, I haven't.
No, I really haven't. I feel like that's, I mean, even what Megan said earlier in the episode, that that Facebook comment where they said the spirits are not there to hurt you, they won't harm you. So I haven't,
Yeah.
I honestly, even like the evil spirits you hear about, I haven't really heard of it like harming anyone. Maybe shoving someone, or maybe you know, being a nuisance, stuff like that. But that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Megan, what do you think?
I'd be interested to hear if there are more stories of people seeing this ghost taking different forms, because you said it could be, you know, a dog or a sheep. So it's very interesting that there's this repetitive, like, pig apparition sort of thing. So I know if I ever see pigs, I'm running the other way.
Running the other way.
It's decided.
Yeah, very spooky.
Don't look at your barbecue ribs the same again.
I don't know if I can give that up.
Neither can I. So the origin of the Ridgeway Ghost, there's been many stories. So let's start with the first one. 2 teenage brothers at McKillop Saloon in 1840, 2 brothers ages 4 and 15 were murdered. The motivation is unclear why they were murdered, but one of the brothers was tossed into a fireplace.
No.
Oh, wow.
No.
And he burned to death. The other brother froze to death as he attempted to run away from town. Somehow from those deaths arose the Ridgeway Ghost. So, okay, that's the first one. So keep these in the back of your mind, ladies, and we'll kind of see what you think. My favorite, the bar brawl.
Oh boy, I'm ready.
Around the 1840s, of course, you're going to have a bar brawl. Come on.
Duh.
In the village resulted in the murder of a man, of course. Now, there aren't a lot of details here, but there were plenty of saloons where it's reasonable to assume brawls broke out. Yeah, it's the 1800s. Everybody fought. And people were killed. So why it turned out that one of them turned into an aggressive ghost is anyone's guess. So next one, the New York Times article. So on December 7th, 1902, the New York Times published a story called Some Wisconsin Ghost. And in the same news article that I mentioned above regarding Dr. Cutler at the beginning of this Ridgeway Ghost section, he is supposed to be the wrath of a man in the lead mining days before the Civil War.
Okay.
So if you're going, so the Civil, I'm a big history buff. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I'm a huge history buff. So the Civil War in Wisconsin was not, we weren't a state that people wanted. We were basically, there was Camp Randall. Yes, that is a Civil War site, but we were mostly, prisoners were brought here. So people looked at Wisconsin like, hey, go to Wisconsin, you're a prisoner, stay in Wisconsin. We had fighting and there were a couple battles, but not really. So I don't know about that one. And then the last one is it's made up because there are no police reports, no pictures or videos. I did see this YouTube video where this guy was walking around Ridgeway. It's like a 20-minute video. And again, I love all our people who are doing paranormal and starting out just like us. But he just walked around and he kind of talked about things. Okay. You watch it if you want to. His name was J. Nathan Couch. You heard it?
Yeah, he's the guy who wrote the the book about the Goat Man, I think. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty positive. I know I've talked about him in like a very recent episode.
Seems like a good guy. You know,
yeah,
like said, seems fun.
There's so many like recurring characters in like the Dairyland Fright cinematic universe.
I like that.
It's awesome. And I did find a few stories from locals. that said the entire thing had been made up in the 1850s to scare troublemakers out of town.
I mean, I
So,
could see
okay.
it.
Maybe.
Okay. So, like the other origin stories, again, I couldn't verify this. I really looked around. Also read about some comments on Facebook. I have to say they were very lame. It was like, I saw the ghost when I was walking my dog. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
maybe
right.
they did.
Okay, you did. No pictures, just whatever. So anyway, I didn't include those. What we were trying to with research today, but like I said, J. Nathan Couch. He also did there's a children's book by William Horner, and yes, you can go on Amazon and buy this book. It's kind of out of print, and I found one that I was going to buy because I was thinking, I'll support the local guy. For some reason, it was $275.
Ooh, damn.
Man,
That's
I don't
expensive.
know why.
it's expensive.
So
Huh.
here, though, is a quote from a former Ridgeway resident. I used to live in Ridgeway. It is very interesting, but sadly, not many paranormal things happen. The water tower has a ghost painted on it, which it does. If you go past Ridgeway, there is a
Oh, that's
ghost
awesome. That's so cool.
on the water tower. And it's still to this day, by the way. You can go and look it up. It's pretty interesting. And the police have a ghost on their crest, which you can go online. You can see that.
Oh
So
my God, that's awesome.
just like our Hodag and just like Peppy, not Peppy, the water cryptid.
Yeah, that's Peppy, like Pep and Monster.
Peppy,
Yeah.
okay. Where people dive in and they say, hey, we're going to make this part. So Ridgeway has dove all the way in, being that the police have a crest and it's on the water tower. It is widely talked about there, and it's a fun story to hear about. Not really people are scared. Even the elementary schools has books about ghosts, and they talk about ghosts all the time. Which, why didn't I go to that school? Come on.
Right? That sounds awesome.
So the town is rich in ghost lore, and they even have a festival every year and a ghost run.
Oh,
nice. We
fun.
should do that.
Yeah.
They really, really go into it. I even saw like in some local bakery had like ghost cookies, and they're like I said, they have a ghost run, and some people put on sheets and run, and you know what I mean, with the eye holes, and kind of cheesy way of being a ghost. So, what do you think about the Ridgeway Ghost?
That's terrifying.
So, I'm going to start with you, Megan. Real or not?
I'm going to lean towards not. I feel like a lot of the stories could just be explained by just regular physical happenings. Plus, it's giving me, like you said, like Hodag vibes. Like, oh, we're going to make this into like a bunch of scary stories we tell in the dark. So, but I do think it's a cool premise. I will give them that.
Yeah. And Brooke, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know that I believe that it's like one ghost who did all these crazy things. Like to me, I don't know, like especially after reading about Mineral Point, it seems like this like southwest area of Wisconsin is very like rich with ghost lore, despite having like a very low population. There's a lot of like spooky stuff going on in the area in general. So I could see it being like there are different paranormal occurrences, but that they're not all like one ghost that's just been haunting the crap out of everybody. So I don't know. I feel like I lean more towards, there's some spooky stuff going on, but it isn't all connected in the way that they're saying. But
I think that's really cool. I think it's a Scooby-Doo plot. I think it's like Old Man Wilbur. Oh, Old Man Wilbur. And they ripped that ghost, and he's been like, get away from my town. I'll let you know. So
I could see that, yeah.
Right. Because here's where I always, like all of us have read numerous ghost stories, podcasts, listened to. What typically is, it's like, here's the ghost, it shows up at 3, and that, that's a residual haunting, right? Okay, 3 o'clock, here comes Old Man Wilby, and they're walking down the hall. Oh, spooky. Or intelligent haunting, right? Where you walk in, and you sit down, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, your TV turns on and off, or the lights go on and off, and you don't know what's going on. But with this, it's just, to me, so much like it can be a pig, it could be a woman, it can be a headless horseman, it could be like right. And being that people died from fright on the third time, to Megan's point, why wouldn't you die to fright on the first time? Because it's a ghost,
That's
right?
true.
Right. Anyway, so I'm going to give a big no to. I love it though that Ridgeway is kind of you're placing the arms around this and saying, hey, you know, it's fun,
Yes.
and everyone has a little fun about it. So
I love that
to me
too.
is really fun, and maybe we would do an investigation there and whether prove the ghost is there or not. So
It's just
let's
us
move.
going
Yeah.
up to random farm animals.
Pointing our EM whatever thing at. I see you.
Brooke has
Kate.
one.
I do have one.
Nice. So here's one that I think is kind of interesting. I've heard about it. I think if you're only in Wisconsin, you've probably heard about it, but it's the Mineral Point Vampire. Take it away, Brooke.
Oh my gosh, I had heard of this, but I honestly, oh my gosh, just such a funny story. But so I want to talk about a couple of the sources. So I have this book called Chasing American Monsters by Jason Offutt. It's a fun, it kind of goes through like cryptids, the most popular cryptids from each state in the US. It's very fun, but it just gives like a very high level, like very, very high level overview of like every story. But I would definitely recommend it. And then the Wisconsinology website, the Ranker website, which was kind of interesting. And then also, it's interesting that you mentioned the W files because I found a couple quotes from that as well. Actually, it was like a book too. I think it's a website and a book, but yeah, they popped up in my research as well. So this is gonna be a fun story. So we'll have to decide by the end whether we think that this spring-heeled being is a real vampire or a cryptid, or is it just a wacky local goth with an interest in parkour?
I'm so intrigued.
It's very intriguing.
Hey, Brooke, can you explain parkour to our audience who may not know what that is?
Yeah. Well, I would recommend watching the cold open to The Office episode where they're trying out parkour. But it's basically trying to get from like one location to the other in like a creative, crazy way, like doing flips, jumping off walls, climbing up walls, that kind of stuff. And it definitely seems like this Mineral Point vampire had an interest in this, as we'll find out. Parkour.
You gotta watch The Office.
Yeah, so funny. Yeah. I always think about that.
Very fun.
So let's set the scene a little bit. We were just talking about Ridgeway. So Mineral Point is like a 15-minute drive from Ridgeway down 151. So it's in the same general area. And this story kind of takes place over the span of quite a few years. So 1981 was the first sighting, and 2008 was the most recent sighting. So a pretty wide span of time. And also Mineral Point is about 45 miles west of Madison, Wisconsin, too. So it's in the driftless area of Wisconsin. So it's surrounded by forests and hills, and it's very picturesque. And if you're not familiar with like what that term means, basically pretty much all of Wisconsin was like mowed over by glaciers way back in the day. I don't know. I'm not even going to estimate a time. Right. But there's a certain area of like southwest Wisconsin, basically like the lower left quadrant of Wisconsin was not touched by glaciers. So it's called the driftless area, and it is a lot more like hilly and just very pretty, like more so than the rest of Wisconsin. Obviously, like there's tons of forests up in the north, but it's very like flat. The rest of the state's very flat. So the city, it's very cute. It has like a adorable little downtown area with like old stone buildings. I love all the towns like out in this area. They're so pretty and fun. And today the population of the town is 2,500 people. So it has been about that number for a long time, at least since the early 90s. And another source, so this is kind of interesting, John, you said that there was like a big population boom in like I think it was like the 1840s or something like that, because people were going there for like mining, and all these different jobs. And the population actually of Mineral Point got to like 3,400, I think, at its peak, and then it like dropped, which is kind of unusual. So it like steadily like went down from that point until now. So it was at its lowest point actually in 1980. So that's when our story starts, when the population was at its lowest point. And there also are some people who say that people left the town because of alleged paranormal activity, which I could not find any evidence of that being the reason.
Yeah. I
But
don't know.
you know, I think it was well, there was a Facebook commenter who thinks it was a different reason. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Okay.
But anyway, our story starts in 1981 on March 14th. So this is the first sighting of the Mineral Point vampire. Basically, the police were called to the Graceland Cemetery to investigate a trespassing. They said there was like a weird figure like walking around the cemetery. So the police officers, obviously this is a small town, they don't have a ton going on, I imagine. So
No,
they head over. Specifically, the officer John Pepper went over to kind of check it out, and he saw this dark figure lurking among the tombstones. And Officer John Pepper described this figure as a huge person wearing a black cape with a white painted face, about 6'5" and ugly.
Oh my god!
Nice police description.
Yeah, that's great. Not you didn't specify what made him ugly, but he was ugly. So he saw this guy and he was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the being like looked at him, whoever this was, whether it was a guy, a vampire, whatever. He looked at Officer Pepper and he got spooked and he ran away, and he easily scaled, like leapt over a 4-foot fence at the edge of the cemetery. Other sources said it was a 6-foot fence, and that he like literally totally jumped, like superhuman leaped over the fence. So interesting. And then that didn't come from Officer Pepper though. It was like some other local who said that the fence was actually like taller than 4 feet. I don't know.
10 feet high.
Yeah, I know. It just keeps getting higher and higher as people retell the story.
Yeah.
So when the police came back to look for evidence the next day, because it was night, so they couldn't really see a ton of stuff. So they came back the next day and they found footsteps in the snow, I believe, leading up to the fence, but they didn't see any footsteps on the other side of the fence where the guy had apparently jumped over. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And this kind of confused them, and they figured like maybe this was some kind of hoax, so they didn't really like look into it any further. But apparently like this became big news in the town. So apparently like this was the first of many cemetery encounters with a vampire, although I couldn't find specific other sightings. But what did happen was this like created vampire fever in Mineral Point for like a couple weeks. Like everyone was talking about
fever.
Yeah, it was a huge topic. Everyone was talking about it.
I love it.
Yeah, so there were tons of people like saying, "Oh, I saw the vampire here, I saw the vampire there," but like not being very serious about it. Also, apparently, people were dressing as vampires at bars. Yeah, they would like go to the bar dressed as vampires, and they even made T-shirts.
Oh,
yeah, they made a T-shirt that said like "I was bitten by the Mineral Point vampire" or
Oh
something
my
like
gosh.
that.
you're so bad.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know, right? I know, yeah. And again, I'll touch on that. We'll come back to this, but very funny. So everything kind of died down though. You know, this was kind of like a one-time thing. People were like crazy about it for like a couple months, and then things kind of died down. And the next like major sighting did not actually occur until March of 2004. So same month. This was again in March, but you know, years later, like 23 years later. So on this day, the police received calls about a man who was in a tree near a local apartment building, and he was like heckling tenants and like leaping down at them as they passed by and like trying to scare them and stuff.
And Megan, that wasn't me. That was not me.
I swear.
That night. I promise you.
Right? Oh my
Prove
God.
it, John.
Oh boy, I can't. You guys got me.
Where was John in March of 2004? We don't know.
Maybe there, maybe not.
Yeah. But anyway, so the police were called again because this guy was heckling everybody. And so when they approached, the vampire leapt to the ground from the tree. And then he like looked at him and ran off. And this time they said that he climbed a 10-foot concrete wall.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then he disappeared into the night. And again, they said the police followed his tracks in the snow to the wall, but could not pursue him past the wall because there were no tracks on the other side of the wall. So leading people to
Weird.
believe that maybe this was just a thought, but maybe as he climbed the fence and the wall, he like turned into a bat and flew away.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
maybe that's why his footsteps were not on the other side. We don't know. So, anyway, again, he kind of disappears for 4 years. Also, interestingly, and I did not look into this because I couldn't really find anything besides a weird website who mentioned it. But apparently, there was a state senator between 1981 and 2004 who was trying to make being a vampire illegal in Wisconsin. And I did not look too much into it. Yeah, apparently it did because this guy disappeared for 23 years. That's the reason that this author gave her. Yeah. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I would like to look more into that. Maybe we'll touch on it next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very interesting. So 2004, he disappears for 4 more years. And then in July of 2008, the weirdest encounter, I think, of all of them happens. So July of 2008, a young couple, Brandon Hines, who was 22 at the time, and Jamie Marker, who was 19, they were fishing at Ludden Lake at night around 10 p.m.
I fished.
And have you? That's interesting. Yeah, well, that's where this happened. So they're out on like a kind of like floating dock that goes out into the lake. Yeah. And they said, so they heard something like crawling underneath the dock, and Brandon actually said that it almost sounded like someone was using the dock as a ladder underneath, like climbing along the underside of it. Very odd.
Heck no.
Right? So Brandon, he thought this was some type of animal, so he was kind of like stomping on the dock, and then he heard something splash into the water. And, at this point, they're like, oh, it's probably like a raccoon or something. Who knows? So he has a flashlight and he shines it into the water. And what they see at the end of the dock is a tall, thin man with a white face climbing onto the dock. Yeah, terrifying. So terrified, Jamie ran immediately back to started sprinting for the car. And then Brandon was like kind of in shock, like staring at the sky. And after a couple seconds, after getting a good look at him, he threw his flashlight at the man and then also sprinted off. They completely, they left all their belongings behind, like their fishing poles and everything. They were so terrified, they just booked it. And they both described this figure as wearing a cape of some sort or like some kind of Dracula costume. Like that's what he literally said. And then Jamie claims to have witnessed the vampire rushing towards them as they sped away in the car. So like she got in the car, she was waiting for Brandon to get there. Then Brandon got there, they sped away, and she looked in their rearview mirror and saw him like chasing after them. So naturally they both drove straight to the Mineral Point police station to report what they had seen. And the police went and investigated. They didn't find anything. And then the following day, Jamie and Brandon went back to Ludden Lake to retrieve their belongings, and they found everything. Like everything was accounted for except for the flashlight. And Brandon Hines said, whoever it is, they could keep it.
I love that.
So he was,
I get another one.
he did not want to see him again. So this, to our knowledge, to what I could find, was the last real run-in with this Mineral Point vampire character. Although there's other random things that kind of pop up every once in a while, but these are like the main encounters. And then I found I love coming back to these Facebook comments because it's so funny. I found a Facebook article that had that was about the Mineral Point vampire, and it had quite a few shares and likes on it. And this guy Ryan said the vampire's name is Nick Sinetti. And that's all he said. There's no
Hey Nicky, what's up?
Okay.
It might have just been one of his friends. I don't know. He didn't tag anyone. Right. But I did look it up though. There was a guy named Nick Sinetti who lived in Mineral Point at the time. So who knows? Maybe this guy knew. Maybe that was who. Maybe that guy was the Mineral Point vampire. And then a guy named Logan said people left the town because of the creatures. I think more than likely they left because there was no work, which I wanted to touch on that because I thought that was probably true. They probably didn't leave because there's paranormal activity.
The vampire took all our work.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, damn.
All the mining work, yeah. Peggy said that she hasn't heard these stories, but Officer Pepper gave her first and only speeding ticket.
Thanks, Officer Pepper.
And my favorite one, which I wish I want to like contact these people, but
Yes.
two different people, John and Jennifer, both said that they had the shirt from 1981 that was going around that said I was bitten by the vampire. I know, we need to find them and see what the shirt looks like.
Totally buying it.
Yeah, if we could find it, I would spend good money on that. But yeah, so that's the Mineral Point vampire. I have a couple other things about Mineral Point I want to talk about, but first I want to ask you guys, what do you think the vampire is? Megan, what do you think?
I kind of feel like it's just like a dude who just has like a very weird fascination with like being Edward Cullen from Twilight. Like, although this did come before Twilight came out, so maybe that was the origination story.
However, the later story is maybe like it was a different, just random goth guy to start back in the 80s, and then like he stopped being a vampire or whatever, and then like someone else brought back his legacy after Twilight came out, because like the later stories I think came out around that time, so maybe because it was a long period of time, like 23 years, so I'm like, could it be the same guy? Maybe, but
that is a good question. And then another thing that was kind of making me laugh, can you imagine this like dripping wet vampire just like running after your car? Like that's just
that's awesome.
With like maybe like his makeup's like dripping off his face. That's terrifying.
It is terrifying. But what do you think, John? Do you think this is a real vampire?
So, like, if I heard and then the guy chasing me, I would be like, okay, something up here. So, what's super funny is my wife is obsessed with vampires. She's watched Twilight a billion times. She's watched The Vampire Diaries. She's watched True Blood.
This is you then.
Yeah,
I feel like
John,
come clean. Your wife.
What's super funny about it is like anything on vampires she watched. So I shared this story with her, and she goes, "Oh, I don't know. That sounds like a fake." And I'm like, "Wait a minute,
okay."
She's the expert because she considers herself an expert. Because she's read the Twilight books a billion times. Anne Rice interviewed the vampire. Like I said, you would not believe she's done everything with vampires. And it's super funny because, like I said, when I shared to her, she immediately goes, "Oh, it's fake."
I believe her. I trust her opinion. Because I feel like if it was a real vampire, they wouldn't leave footprints in the snow to begin
they would
with.
not.
No,
So you remember, like with vampires, one of the things, and I've been educated on this, by the way. So really quickly, vampires move extremely fast. They can shapeshift at any will. They typically do not want to be seen because they want to, remain anonymous and everything. So I think it was just somebody's bored in their small town, which, oh my God, I wish someone would do this in Spring Green where I live. Something, because it's super boring. When you live in a small town, like nothing happens. So I was just having fun. And, I wish they would adapt it like the Ridgeway Ghost. You know what I mean? Like have like a vampire run,
that'd be fun.
Capes, or have vampire cookies. I mean, you can do a lot of things with it. So I'm going to say a hard no on vampire thing.
I agree. But I love the story though. I think it's very fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about a couple other kind of fun things about Mineral Point, because this, again, town of like 2,500 people is very small, but there's like a lot of kind of weird stuff that goes on in this area. So one thing is there's this place called the Walker House. And it's one of the oldest inns in the States, also a restaurant. You can go there and have lunch or whatever. But it looks very cool and spooky from the outside. And honestly, Megan, I feel like, didn't Wizard at Akita Box talk about this place? Yeah, okay. Yes. I was like, I feel like I remember this. So this place is really cool. The current owners say that it's not haunted and that they found no evidence of ghosts. And I believe when Wizard told us about this place, he also said that he didn't think that it was haunted. He's never experienced anything.
Okay.
But the one-time property manager of the place, Walker Calvert, who no longer owns it, He had numerous spectral encounters, including one with the headless man in 1981.
Oh, there we go again. Which way goes?
And yeah, and this is so what this might come from is some people believe that the paranormal activity dates back to a public execution of a murderer named William Caffey. And this execution actually took place at the Walker House on November 1st of 1842, and he was like hung. Yeah, but what I thought was hilarious though was it said that he approached his hanging while playing the funeral march using empty beer bottles.
Okay,
of course.
Yeah, I was like, what a Wisconsin thing. But anyway, I thought that was so funny. I was like, well, maybe that kind of ties in with your headless horseman story. Maybe the Ridgeway Ghost. It's all connected.
It is all connected.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the Walker House looks awesome. I definitely want to go there, even just for lunch. Not, maybe it's not haunted, but it looks like a really cool place.
Yeah, still cool.
Yeah. Another thing that happened was a werewolf sighting, which happens very frequently, it turns out. And another recurring character of the Dairyland Fright cinematic universe, Linda Godfrey, talks about a woman who actually contacted her in 2004 about a sighting of a werewolf from 1987. So she said that she saw a werewolf running as he was transforming in the middle of the day in spring in 1987. And she also claimed that like 15 to 20 other people also witnessed this with her, but Linda couldn't find and corroborate that story with those other people. So she just had that kind of one-off story. But again, like this place is not that far away from places like Elkhorn and stuff like that.
Right.
We talked about the Beast of Bray Road. So it's like there's a lot of like dogman type stories from this area too, which is kind of interesting.
Right.
And then lastly, there was also a sighting of a bright, mysterious light in 1986. So very close in time. A lot of these things happened in the 80s. So according to the W Files by Jay Raff, a sheriff and several residents of Mineral Point witnessed a bright light hovering over the city, and it appeared to be motionless, and then it took off at a high rate with no speed with no sound. So it took off at a high rate of speed, with no sound. And it's just interesting because apparently, again, like 10 to 20 people witnessed this, and the timing is similar to like the werewolf sighting and the initial vampire sightings. And just, a lot of people think that Mineral Point is kind of a hotbed of paranormal activity because of all this kind of weird and wacky stuff that happens, despite, again, it's a very small town and a very kind of like secluded area. But yeah, so that's the Mineral Point Vampire, and that's Mineral Point, Wisconsin. It sounds like a fun place. I've never actually been there.
Yeah.
But I would really like to go. Just, I feel like the vibes are intriguing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a very nice place. Has a nice little downtown. Ridgeway is a nice little downtown. Ridgeway has about 7 bars and about 3 churches. So there you go.
More bars than churches. That's like the quintessential small town Wisconsin trope.
So we had some great stories today. I love, we had a ghost that killed 3 people and can turn into a pig. And so that's pretty cool. The vampire, people really getting behind that. I think it's super cool. And also, our paranormal news, it's something we will try to do from time to time to share with some interesting, whether it be sightings, pictures, news, whatever it might be. So, Megan, what do you think? Anything you want to add?
I would be interested to know if Mineral Point has like a weird makeup of the land. Like, I just want to know what makes this a hotbed of such weird,
like
activity.
ley lines or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
So really quickly, if you look into that, they said the lead mines, the lead in the composition of rocks kind of are a magnet for ghosts.
Interesting.
See, that could be a theory.
Yeah.
So one thing, just really quickly, I'm going to put on my geeky hat, my tinfoil hat, really quickly.
Nerd.
So if you live near like those huge power lines, with the big steel frames, if your house is near there, there's a ton of paranormal activity in those homes and in those areas because the ghosts supposedly draw energy from the
interesting.
Yeah, so that's something we can talk about too. That's one topic I would love to talk about, like how do ghosts originate, how do they get their power, and how does this happen? Something we can talk about for a future topic. So, what do you think, Brooke? Anything you like to add?
Not really. Not really. I just think that this is such a. I just love the driftless area in general. I think like the whole, like even down to like Galena, Illinois. I would love to talk about that area soon because that has a lot of spooky paranormal stuff going on too. Like the whole driftless area to me is just like, it's so cool. It's very secluded. It's very like, it just has a very interesting feel. Like wherever you are in that area, it just, there's like a specific energy that you kind of feel that I think like lends itself to all this like paranormal stuff. So I think it's fun. I think we'll end up talking about that area quite a bit in future episodes and keep coming back to it. So yeah, I think it's fun.
So thank you again, Parascanis. We love your support. And, you know, again, we're going to have an Instagram page and possibly TikTok, right, ladies? Possibly?
Yes, possibly. Not immediately. I literally like made the Instagram account like just now, so it exists. There's nothing on it yet. But it's
we will have
all one word.
Yeah, we will have different things for Megan and Brooke, and they'll drag me into it, even though I don't have an Instagram account. So we'll talk about shows coming up. We'll put some great pictures out there. Will be some great sightings, maybe some videos if we can do that. Either way, make sure you check us out. And again, like we always end every show, tell your ghost we said hi. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.